Hello everyone, welcome to IAS by Heart. Today we are going to do the Polity Class 2. Regarding the Prelims Heist, last time we have done the 10 questions. Hopefully they are very much useful for your preparation. So quickly let's begin today's class. The first question is related to Directive Principles of State Policy. So here we can see there are two statements which are given. And then they are asking you to find out which are the socialistic principles. So the first statement is to prohibit the consumption of intoxicating drinks and drugs which are injurious to health, to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living of people to improve public health. One is related to intoxicating drinks and the other one is related to the standard of living and the nutrition which is regarding the public health. So here the question is that which are the socialistic principles? So we know that the Gandhian principles, then the liberal, and finally the socialist. So if you remember them clearly, then there is no problem. But if you don't remember them, then you should at least have a clue that what gets included in which area and how. So the better policy is that you remember them very clearly. So this first one is clearly the Gandhian principle. So the Gandhian ones are very easy to remember because they are few. You can remember them. The Panchayat Raj, cooperative societies, and the slaughtering of the cows ban and intoxicating drinks and drugs. These areas are Gandhian. At the same time, the socialistic principles will have a clue that is welfare and then the distribution of material resources, improving the standard of living, be it by this area or even the wage, providing proper conditions of work, they are all socialist. So here they are asking that which are the socialist. So only two will be the answer, B will be the answer. Okay. So B, socialistic principles, as you can see. So economic justice and set a path. So to this next one is also related to the Article 47 only, but this is Gandhian. So this is Gandhian in nature, and the first one is socialist. So now next question. So which of the following aim at establishing political democracy in the country? See, the question looks quite simple, like very simple, and it's a single liner. Direct 4 options are given. And now in the exam hall, this all creates a lot of trauma, like how you are going to answer surely that this is the answer. So now the options are fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy, preamble, and none of the above. So political democracy means they are talking about the state and then like the people's involvement in there and getting all the things in a proper way from the people's involvement. So now here you observe the individual gets the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy are related to the state. So that is one simple logic where you can come to a conclusion that fundamental rights will provide for the establishment of the political democracy rather than the directive principles of state policy, because the preamble and none of the above is not even an option. Hardly you can get confused that directive principles of state policy might be the answer, but that's not the case. So they are directive in nature, first thing, and they establish the socio-economic and all levels of protection from the state to the people. And fundamental rights are for the individuals against the state. So you ask the state if the state is not providing something. Now there is little difference need to be understood. So here you can see there are negative, and we know that they are negative because you are questioning something wrong, and then they prohibit the state from doing certain things, that arbitrary action of the state we are curtailing, and then they aim at the political democracy, so that we are at the end of the day our aim is to get the political democracy. And at the same time, if you talk about the directive principles, then it is for the social, economic, the equality concepts which are trying to provide in the country. The socio-economic democracy we are trying to provide here. and here we are trying to provide the political democracy. This will be there in the Lakshmikant in the notes and references if you are referring it properly, or even in the differences also it will be there, and I hope it should be there in the DD Basu also if you give a proper concentration. So this kind of single liner questions are little tough in the UPSC rather than the statement based questions or the factual questions. So let's go to the third question. So the third one is related to the living wage and the minimum wage concept. So the living wage includes the bare needs of life, which are food, shelter, and clothing. So living wage they are talking about, and then the addition to food, shelter, clothing, which are the basic things. The minimum wage will add health, education, insurance, etc. So now if you know what is minimum wage, at least then you can try guessing the living wage. And if you have ever heard the living wage in the news which is currently coming, then also you can try guessing the other part of it. But if you haven't heard the definition and you are having a confusion, then it's better to leave the question, because it will be a broad guess which you are going to take. So coming to the answer, the minimum wage is something which is going to decide the food, shelter, clothing, and the living wage is something what all expenses you need for your living and like education, health, insurance, etc. So the statements both are like altered. What is living wage? They are talking about the minimum, and what is minimum wage? They are talking about the living wage. So they are asking the correct statement, so it should be the none of the above. So once we will see it, what is the definition and all. So here you can check it. The living wage is different from minimum wage. We know that thing, and it is in the news, and because of that Manrega, so most of the times you get to hear the minimum wage concept, and in comparatively you will hear about the living wage also. Minimum wage includes the bare needs like food, shelter, and clothing. And minimum wage is usually decided how much it is in the money format. It will be decided very clearly, like how we decide 150, 200 rupees or 150 rupees or any amount of money you are deciding. And to addition to these things, if you are adding education, health, insurance, and you are deciding certain standard of living, that is a living wage. And now whatever the mean which is there, like where you are doing the average of these things and then bringing out a word, then that will be considered as a fair wage. Fair wage will not be used in the news and the editorials very much, but they use the living wage and the minimum wage, and why we are preferring more and more of the minimum wage, and how it is not going to sufficient and be equivalent to the living wage of a person. In that area it should be clear enough. Okay. So the next question is regarding the CBI. CBI is also in the news very much. Every 6 months it is going to come in the news because of its functioning nature and the working nature and the association to the central government. So now here the simple thing they are asking that the CBI investigation takes care of which type of the cases, what type of cases it takes among the following. So sumoto, we have discussed about the sumoto in the past videos. Sumoto is something where you take the initiative and like it is directly given even if the victim is not complaining for certain thing. So then the anti-corruption crimes, so that you might be hearing in the news now and then that it is very much associated with the CBI. And then the special crimes. So special crimes, I'm sure that at least with movies or like any TV series or something, you know that CBI is associated to the special crimes. Now only simple complication is that is it related to the sumoto or not. So this was in the news. If you have observed clearly, yes, CBI is related to the sumoto cases also, but it needs someone to suggest that the sumoto case should be taken. Okay, so the answer will be C, that 1, 2, and 3. And then a little bit of explanation we will see here. So anti-corruption crimes, one thing, and related to the Corruption Act. So anything which comes under the public authority area, they are going to take up the anti-corruption crimes. And economic crimes also, fake Indian currency notes, etc. And special crimes also. So apart from all these things, then the next crime will be that related to all these three areas. and if the central government is suggesting, then they will be able to take the suo motu cases also. So suo motu cases, they can take up only on the suggestion of the central government or the Supreme Court. So that suggestion is needed. Okay. So the next question, here you can see it. So CBI can take the suo motu offences only on union territories and on the direction of Supreme Court, Higher Court. And if they have to take under the central government, then it has to be under certain restrictions that they have to take the permission. Okay. So the next question, which is consider the following statements. Abolition or creation of legislative councils in states is done under Article 368. So Article 368 is related to what? It is related to the amendment. So amendment, in a specific amendment you do, there are certain areas which are simple amendments and there are certain areas which are done under the Article 368. That list is clearly given. And if you have observed that list, then you should remember all the items, at least the important items. Then the next statement is, fifth schedule, administration of scheduled areas and scheduled tribes is done outside the scope of Article 368. So this you should be very clear enough. This they are saying inside and this they are saying out. So out, why? Because the president is going to have the right over here. So that we are sure enough because it is discussed every now and then. And now the question is that this abolition or creation of legislative councils. Recently also the AP government issue or before the Karnataka, and every time the legislative councils, you know it that they are easily created and they are easily dismantled also. So in that way we know that it doesn't come under the Article 368. So they are also out actually. So they are also out and they don't come under the purview of the Article 368. So now what they are asking? They are asking that what is the correct statement? So what is the correct statement? What is the answer? Please write it down in the comments so that like you will be able to verify yourself also. So always in the last session what I have observed is that though you have done a proper analogy also, you are not observing whether they are asking the correct statement or incorrect statement. So in the exam hall that would also be important that even if you have done everything right also, in the last second you should observe whether they are asking correct or incorrect. Okay. So then the answer is B. So both come outside the purview of the Article 368. This list is very huge. Around 20 items are given in the Lakshmikant that you can refer out. So among that, few of them I have lifted here. So as you can see, the administration of scheduled areas and scheduled tribes and the creation of the legislative councils in the state. Okay. Now the next question, the sixth one. Consider the following two statements regarding the anti-defection law. So this question is related to the anti-defection law, which is your 10th schedule, and it is asking about the features. So if an elected member voluntarily gives up his membership of a political party, then the anti-defection law applies. So if an elected member votes or abstains from voting in such house, so then does it apply? So that is a statement which is like asking about. So now the first statement is very much clear. So as soon as you start reading the anti-defection law, this is a statement you encounter with. So obviously that is a correct statement. Now the simple doubt should be from the second statement. But if you observe the story of the Ayaram and the Gayaram and how the lobbying was happening and why exactly we had to bring the anti-defection law to stop the people to poach the party member from one area to another area overnight. Like what happened with that Ram, like in a single day, he changed the 3 parties just for the lobbying purpose. So that is voting or abstaining from voting or changing the things. So that was all related to the anti-defection law. So in that way, if they are not receiving the permission from the party that they are not going to attend, or if they are not receiving permission from the party that they are not going to vote prior 15 days before, then obviously they will be removed. So that is the logic of the anti-defection law. So obviously both the statements are correct, but what they are asking for the incorrect statements. So incorrect statements are none. So the none of the above should be the answer. D should be the answer. So D is the answer, and like both the statements you can see here, so which are related to the party. If he voluntarily gives up his membership of such political party, then if he votes or abstains from voting in such house, contrary to any decision which is taken by the political party without taking the prior permission and this 15 days, so then obviously they will be eligible to be removed under the anti-defection law. So this has to be remembered. This is the easiest part to remember, but most of the times you observe there will be a question regarding the anti-defection law in the UPSC paper. So that's why it's a very small area. It requires hardly 1 hour of preparation so that you can get a clarity. But every now and then it will be in the news. So that's why it becomes important. So the next question, 7th one. Consider the following statements regarding constitutional amendment, amending the constitution we are talking about. So the first statement, the constitutional amendment requires prior recommendation of the president. So think about it. Do we need it? Then the president has no veto power with regard to constitutional amendment bill. So we know it very clearly that very rarely the president doesn't have the veto power, and that is in the case of the constitutional amendment bill. So the president doesn't have any veto power regarding the constitutional amendment bill. Now talking about the prior permission required by the president. Not to all the constitutional amendment bills, we don't require the prior permission of the president. Only few bills are there. There will be a list where do we require the prior permission of the president. Those bills you can remember. So please type it down in the comments. Where do we need the prior recommendation of the president for the constitutional amendment bills? So now what they are asking for the incorrect statements. So what is the incorrect statement? So that is 1A. Okay. So A is the answer. The prior recommendation is not required, and the president will not have any veto power. And like that obligation, we have removed it with the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act. So that has been removed. This part can be remembered. Even if not, also remember clearly that president has to sign it, and he will not require any prior recommendation. Why I have asked both the statements together is that you might feel that if this is there, then the above must be there. If the above one must be there, then logically you might think that the below statement must be correct. That's not the case. And after the amendment, it has become very clear that he is not having that veto power to hold it, or like to use his discretionary power here. Okay. Then the next question, 8th one. The right to property was removed from the list of fundamental rights during the rule of. Why I have framed this question is, we have seen that the land ceiling act, under which government it has come, the UPSC has asked it. Even before to that also, it has asked which government has passed certain bills. So that's why this is a most famous area. Like most of the aspirants might mistake that who has passed this decision, that the right to property decision. Okay. So it is the Morarji Desai government, not the Indira Gandhi government. Okay. So the Morarji Desai government, though the initiative and everything and all the discussion has happened in the Indira Gandhi government, but the person or the people who were responsible for removing it from the list of fundamental rights, it is under the Morarji Desai government. Okay. So though this is little factual, it is little tricky enough, and UPSC always comes up with this kind of question. So that's why we have made it a point. So Morarji Desai government scrapped the fundamental right to property with the 44th Amendment Act in 1978. So even in that way also logically you could have come that from where the 44th Amendment Act has been passed. Okay. Then the next question. Article 330 of Indian Constitution belong to which of the following? This is direct and this is little factual also. But as I have said, these are important areas. So this is where like your mains preparation comes in handy for prelims, and even the prelims preparation comes very much useful for your mains preparation. Okay. So if you know the articles related to the UPSC, then you will not get confused whether it is All India Services, And even related to the election commission also, we expect that you should remember the article. And the reservation in the village panchayats, like what are the panchayat related articles. So whatever the articles are there, please mention down in the comments so that others can also know regarding the A, B and C. Okay. Then the reservation of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in Lok Sabha is the answer. So the D is the answer, and Article 330 and 332 and 340, these are all the important articles which are related to the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. So related to these areas, even if you are writing in the essay or even if you are writing anywhere else, also it is better that you quote the articles, then you will be having more authenticity to what you are talking and how the constitution is trying to protect them. So these articles are important. Very few articles will be important and expected that you should remember them. Out of that, the fundamental rights and the articles related to the judiciary, emergency ones, then specifically now coming here related to the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes one. Okay. So Article 330 provides for the reservation of seats in Lok Sabha for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. Okay. This reservation issue is a continuous thing which is being in the discussion always, but related to the articles, it might come anytime. Okay. Next question. Finally, the 10th one. In the context of Constitution of India's states means it is going to mean then what an Anglo-Indian means. So why this question has come here is that in the recent time we have removed the reservation policy for the Anglo-Indians even in the parliament or even the state legislature. So since a long time we were giving them reservation to nominate a person who belongs to the Anglo-Indian. But now that has been gone. So UPSC may not directly talk about that area. For the factual or the basement areas, it might come back. So in that way, what exactly is Anglo-Indian? It is discussed in Article 366. Even that can be remembered because anywhere the question can come. So now let's look at the options. So you know that little bit Anglo-Indian means it is related to something European or Britishers or somewhere you might be thinking. It is a broad guess. If the options are very far away, then you will be safely able to guess it. But in UPSC, the options will be very close enough. So now A, anyone whose family has a European descent. So maybe. Then anyone whose father was a male progenitor in male line is from European descent. So maybe. Then anyone who is British descent born or living in India. Maybe. So the point is that if you haven't seen the proper discussion under the Article 366, then you might mistake understanding that C may be the answer or A may be the answer. That's not the case. The B is the answer. So we expect that whose father or the male line member, exactly the male line member, should be from European descent. And it doesn't need that he should be specifically from Britain. They can be from anywhere, but there should be European descent and only the male line. That word you remember because anytime those exceptional cases become more important in the exam hall. Okay, B is the answer. And as this news is in the discussion, as we have closed the nomination of these members, then anywhere it can be asked or it will be useful for your mains answer. Okay, then so let's see the explanation part. So this is how it is given in the constitution, that wording you can see here. So an Anglo-Indian means a person whose father or any of whose other male progenitor in the male line in or was of European descent. Remember, European descent, father or male progenitor, these three words should do. So but who is domiciled within Indian territory or lived before the broad British Indian territory, he will be considered as an Anglo-Indian. Okay. So as the representation was not proper enough at that point of time, we have decided to do some favor according to the constitution. But as of now, we thought that enough representation and enough development process also has happened. So from 2020, that nomination thing is going to end and we are not going to continue it. That's why it was in the news. And finally, any foundational area can be asked. So that's why keep an eye on it. Okay. So hope the session was helpful And the other thing is that please note down in the comments that how many marks you are getting. So if you are getting good enough marks, then I will increase the complexity of the questions a little bit. Or if you are feeling that you need more trap kind of questions, then I will increase the amount of the traps in the questions. Okay, thank you.